Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started.
Paul Heyman officially became a babyface in 2024, particularly after June 28, when he declared to Solo Sikoa that he wasn't his tribal chief. He then revealed the genius move behind the transition. Paul Heyman has been a babyface in the eyes of fans, even when he was a villain. He has a firm place in the hearts of WWE fans after being on screen for several years through his associations with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. It's incredible to see just how dedicated he continues to be after multiple decades in the wrestling business. Speaking to the New York Post, Paul Heyman explained the intricate psychology when speaking of the differences between being a villain and babyface. My rhythm as a villain is to end sentences on a dagger that are not only toward the opponent but stick and twist into the audience, Heyman said. The rhythm as a protagonist is to stick and twist the intended opponent or the adversary, but not the audience. To have the audience do the stick and twist with you as your chorus. WWE continued to tease Paul Heyman's favor to CM Punk on Raw. When CM Punk joined Roman Reigns' team as the final member of the Survivor Series team, it wasn't free of cost. There were two reasons behind it happening. The first was CM Punk's loyalty to Paul Heyman. Second, there was a favor that Heyman promised CM Punk. On the penultimate episode of Raw to the Royal Rumble as well as the Go Home show, Punk touched upon that favor without revealing what it was. There has, however, been a lot of speculation regarding what the favor could be. Some fans have suggested that the favor is a number 30 spot in the men's Royal Rumble match. Historically, the number 30 match has produced more winners than any other spot. In December, Punk pointed to the spot where the WrestleMania sign hangs from the Royal Rumble onwards, hinting that the favor could be related to WrestleMania. The year was 2024, and Paul Heyman, the mastermind of the WWE Universe, had pulled off yet another incredible feat that nobody saw coming. The wise and manipulative manager had always been known for his ability to manipulate the masses, turning the tide in favor of his clients with nothing more than a well-timed word or a well-placed gesture. But in a move that shocked the wrestling world, Paul Heyman had done the unthinkable. He had turned babyface. For years, Heyman had built a legacy as a villain. He had masterminded the careers of some of the most powerful and hated wrestlers in WWE history, from Brock Lesnar to Roman Reigns. His silver tongue and calculated persona had cemented him as one of the most despised figures in sports entertainment. Yet, in early 2024, something shifted. It began subtly, like a seed planted in the soil of WWE programming. Paul Heyman started appearing on SmackDown and Raw with a slightly different energy. Gone were the sneers and venomous words of manipulation. Instead, there was a new vulnerability in his eyes, a glint of respect for the fans he had once belittled. Heyman wasn't quite the villainous mastermind anymore. He wasn't aligned with anyone. And slowly but surely, the WWE Universe began to notice. The moment it became undeniable, though, was during an episode of SmackDown in February. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, had just lost his title in a shocking upset. The Usos, his once loyal family, had betrayed him in the most public of ways. For the first time in years, Roman Reigns was visibly vulnerable. The bloodline he had spent so much of his reign building was unraveling, and in that moment, Paul Heyman's genius move unfolded. As Roman Reigns stood in the ring, furious and helpless, Paul Heyman walked to the stage, his signature microphone in hand. The crowd was unsure what to expect. Would Heyman side with Roman, defend him? Would he gloat in his greatest client's downfall? It seemed like a pivotal moment where Paul could turn his back and align with another powerhouse, perhaps even the new champion. Instead, Paul did something that would define his legacy in 2024. He spoke from the heart. Roman, Heyman began, his voice almost trembling, "For years, I've stood by your side, but I've never been your servant. I've been your advocate, your guide, your protector. I've always been the one to keep your destiny in line, to keep your power intact. But tonight, I see something in you that I've never seen before. I see humanity. I see vulnerability. And Roman, for the first time in your career, I see you as a man who's just like the rest of us." The crowd went silent. Paul Heyman wasn't just addressing Roman. He was addressing everyone watching at home. He wasn't just a manipulative mastermind anymore. He was a mentor, a figure who had always tried to keep the empire together, but now, he understood the struggles of the human condition. The man who had once been so feared was suddenly showing empathy, not only for Roman but for himself. "I've manipulated so many lives, so many careers, so many destinies," Heyman continued, his voice softening. "But at what cost? What have I built but a legacy of betrayal? What have I left behind but destruction and ruin?" The arena fell quiet as fans began to sense the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just another promo, this was a man who was reflecting on his own actions, a man who had built his empire on the backs of others, but now, for the first time, was questioning everything. "And now, for the first time in my career, I'm going to do something that I should have done a long time ago," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm going to stand up for the people. I'm going to stand up for the ones who never had the chance to. I'm not going to be your advocate, Roman. I'm going to be their advocate. The fans. The ones who built this business. The ones who made us all who we are." With those words, the audience erupted into a mix of shock and excitement. The cheers were hesitant at first, but soon they became thunderous. Heyman, the man who had spent his career plotting, scheming, and aligning with the most powerful forces in WWE, had just made his most brilliant move yet. He had turned his back on Roman Reigns, but more importantly, he had aligned himself with the fans. It wasn't just a babyface turn, it was a redefinition of who Paul Heyman was in the world of professional wrestling. He wasn't the villain anymore. He wasn't the mastermind behind the destruction of others. He was a man who understood what it meant to fight for something greater than oneself. This shift in Heyman's character wasn't just about his words, it was about the way he presented himself. He began to act differently, taking on a more heartfelt persona in his interviews. Gone were the shady dealings and the manipulative schemes. In their place was a focus on uplifting others, including new talents, whom he believed could change the business. He started managing up-and-coming wrestlers who didn't fit the typical mold of the WWE superstar, creating a new faction of underdogs and misfits, all united by the idea of working together for the greater good. Heyman's advocacy for the fans became apparent in his actions. He would make surprise appearances during matches to help struggling babyfaces, giving them the mental boost they needed. His presence was enough to turn the tide in their favor, not through deceit, but through belief in their potential. Fans began chanting his name, not in derision, but in admiration. "Paul! Paul! Paul!" echoed through arenas across the country. And yet, Heyman's genius wasn't in his sudden transformation, it was in how he used his past to make this new path believable. He didn't pretend to be someone he wasn't. He acknowledged his past manipulations, his role in the downfall of others, and turned it into a story of redemption. Heyman had always been about power and control, but now, he was showing that real strength lay in vulnerability, in connection with the people, and in fighting for something bigger than the next title or championship belt. In the weeks that followed, Heyman began to build alliances with other wrestlers who were seen as outsiders or misfits, superstars like Ricochet, Sami Zayn, and even Shinsuke Nakamura. He didn't just manage them, he became their emotional anchor. The Paul Heyman Babies, as they were affectionately called by fans, were a motley crew of underdogs who slowly began rising through the ranks, fueled by Heyman's belief in them. It was a babyface turn unlike anything WWE had ever seen, a man who had spent his life manipulating the system now using his influence to elevate others, not for his gain, but for theirs. In 2024, Paul Heyman's genius move was not just about a heel to babyface transition. It was about redemption, about taking the lessons of a storied career and turning them into something far greater, a legacy not built on manipulation, but on connection, hope, and the fight for justice in an often unfair world. Heyman was no longer just the advocate for champions, he was the voice for the voiceless, the advocate for the fans, and the architect of a new era in WWE.